Some have said crystal manifested transcendence and the light of the heavens. But others say, crystals bring wellness, healing. They're also used in fashion, technology, our cell phones, computer chips, refraction, and emission of love, purity, and intrigue to many. But at the same time, there may in fact be a sinister side to these fascinating objects. And that is why, my friends, we bring our friends from Reasons to Believe right here, Dr. Hugh Ross, founder and president of Reasons. Welcome back to When's World, Hugh. It's a pleasure and an honor, sir.
Well, thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. So in my weird poetic pose there, I kind of encapsulated writings from back when they used them to describe love and the carnal nature, but also a connection to the divine. And now we live in a time and a day and age when they're used in practical applications like technology, computer chips, but also in a different and new age-ish kind of way. And that's what we want to kind of bring some context to decide, what may be right for us as individuals, what's right for those of us who call ourselves believers in light of scripture and the word that was written to us so many years ago. Hugh, with all that said, you know a lot more about atom arrangement than I do. So go into basically how these things end up looking like they do, because there's several different ways they can look, perhaps some of the properties they have, the vibrations, the frequencies, all that. I can't wait to pick that apart with you.
Well, I mean, these mineral crystals, they can have beautiful colors. They often are transparent or translucent. They're beautiful. And I think we need to appreciate the beauty. I mean, after all, people throughout millennia have worn these crystals as rings and as jewelry. But I think there's also occasions where people put way too much attention on these things. They don't just look at them as objects of beauty. They see them as maybe a pathway, a portal to getting secret information or to getting secret, quote, vibrations or energy from a source outside the universe. And as an astrophysicist, I can tell you, they're just crystals. The only way they can give you this kind of power is if you bequeath power through these crystals to beings who actually live beyond the universe. And that's where I think we need to be cautious, because these beings have powers we don't possess, and they're not always meant to do us good. So they're both evil angels and righteous angels. So be careful when you begin to use these devices. And by the way, it's not just crystals. Living here in California, I see people giving undue attention to geological formations. I think one key example are the spires that you see in Arizona, Sedona, Arizona. They're gorgeous to look at. And you have this sense of awe when you're in their presence. And people say, I feel something, I feel power, I think I'm being cleansed. Well, yeah, you probably feel better because you're in a beautiful place. But don't think that this is a source of some kind of supernatural power, unless you're having to actually grant permission to people to invade you through this item.
So beyond the things that we cannot see on this side of time and given the eyes that we can, why is it that some people claim that there is an actual frequency or vibration? It kind of is correlative to the tree hugging phenomena, where some people claim that if you actually hug a tree, you do receive the energy that's emitted from creation. Is it possible that in God's wisdom, he did provide a piece of himself through creation? After all, us being created in his image, we do have a godlike being or essence to us, the ability to show empathy, to love, to smile.
Well, they do have, radiation, but it's at an extremely low level, such a low level and so random, it can't have the effects being claimed by people, for example, in the New Age movement. I mean, I was sitting on a plane once with a lady who was reading a book on vortices. I thought, oh, wow, she's into physics, but discovered that this was a book about the spires in Sedona, Arizona. And she was trying to persuade me that there were special, tuned frequencies coming out of these spires. And I had an energy level that was actually able to give healing powers. And I had to explain to her, hey, as a physicist, I can tell you, yes, there's radiation coming out of there, but it's nowhere at the level, it's nowhere tuned to give the effects that you're claiming it has. So there's nothing in the properties of those beautiful redstone spires that can, generate any health benefits to people there, other than by making you feel good because it's just a beautiful place. And I think one reason they get away with it, they say, well, the really strong, powerful energy is on the top of the spire. Well, these spires are very difficult to climb. And, as a mountain climber, I can tell you there's a sense of euphoria you feel when you get to the top of a spectacular mountain. That's not going to heal you of cancer. It just makes you feel good for a little while and say, wow, what did I achieve today? And likewise, I think the same thing's true of crystals. You can look at a beautiful ruby and just say, wow, that's really beautiful, but there's nothing inherent in the radiation coming out of that ruby that attributes any kind of healing power or secret information, anything like that.
Now, this kind of to me resonates with that whole thing that we've heard, mind over matter, or the power of the placebo effect. Do you see any correlation here to the thought and terminology that we hear, intention, manifestation? Like when we hear things about crystals being used as tools, like with a crystal grid or charging them at a new moon or full moon, to me, just from a 10,000-foot view, it sounds a lot like stuff that I don't necessarily want to be tied into as a believer, but I can also understand as a human being wanting to tap into the right kind of energy. We hear about wanting to be around higher frequency people that operate on a business minded approach, people that are go-getters. They tend to have I guess what you'd say, a higher frequency or better vibes, the vibrations. We've heard that for forever. But what is it to that? What is it about, the people that swear by these things, that hold these specific minerals in their hands and they say, holy cow, like I feel better. I feel more energy. People that have had blue appetites or appetite, depending on how it's pronounced, for dream recall. There was one person that swears they put on rhodonite, they taped it to their arm, and overnight the bruises that were underneath that mineral disappeared. Could this be explained by science to any degree, or is it the power of the mind in and of itself?
Well, there's a lot of scientific papers making the point that the placebo effect is real. If people believe that placebo is going to do them some benefit, studies show that those people have a better likelihood, a better outcome than people who don't take the placebo at all, which makes the point that, hey, if you believe that this fake pill is actually going to do some good, there will be some benefit. Likewise, if you believe a certain crystal is going to have some benefit. So the placebo effect is real, and the placebo could be a rock, it could be a pebble, it could be a fake pill, it could be a crystal, it could be a beautiful mountain spire. It doesn't really matter. If you think it's going to heal you, if you think it's going to make you feel better, probability is that it probably will, just because having a positive mindset does enable the body's immune system to function better. And so what they've discovered is they can give fake pills to people in hospitals, and those people think they're getting the real pill. They actually do better than people who don't get any pills at all. So the placebo effect is real. And the more you believe that this is going to help you, I mean, same thing we see with people in sports. You see athletes who will wear special things because they think, hey, this is going to help them perform better. Well, they believe it enough, chances are it's going to put them in the right frame of mind where they'll actually perform a little better than they didn't believe that at all. But is there any science that this actually has a unique benefit within the item itself? No, it's just a placebo. It only works if you think it's going to work, and it's all to do with the mind. It's got nothing to do with the object itself. As a scientist, I don't wear crystals. When somebody gives me a pill, I ask a lot of questions. So people like me don't benefit from the placebo effect. But people who maybe not know what's going on with the science, they can be taken in by it and they can actually benefit from it.
What does the scripture say, according to your interpretation, about doing such things? And how do we kind of navigate that in terms of popular culture, and also not to come across like people from the Westboro Baptist Church per se?
Yeah, well, the Bible's not against us wearing jewelry. It's not against us visiting beautiful places. In fact, it encourages us to get out of our busy lives and make contact with nature and get some relief from the busy stresses that we face, and particularly in 21st century society. I think it's important that we have those restorative experiences with the beauty that God created all around us. And if that's some beautiful crystal, great. If it's some incredible national park or an animal or just getting to visit relatives when they're not busy, I mean, do it. We need those times of restoration. And I think there's one reason why we see a rise in depression, anxiety, and mental illness in the 21st century, because we're more cut off from nature. We're more cut off from these relationships with one another. And, we're more cut off from actually experiencing the beauty that God's created around us. On the other hand, if we begin to look at these objects of beauty as portals to parts of the world beyond this universe, then we can be in danger, because that opens up the door for a fallen angel to actually come in and begin to do nasty things in our life and with our mind. The Bible warns us, never give up control over your mind to anyone besides the one who's perfectly good and perfectly righteous and perfectly loving. And so that's why we're told, don't get drunk, don't enter into seances, don't worship the stars, because there you're opening yourself up to the possibility that a fallen angel can take advantage of this. But yeah, God's not against crystals. He's not against taking a vacation in Sedona, Arizona, as long as we keep it all in proper perspective.
It's interesting when you brought up the propensity of man and womankind, so to speak, to try and find the answers to all of their questions right now. Like if I knew, God, if I knew the answers, then I'd trust you, and to me, as I was researching for this talk, Hugh, I kept trying to find the greater common ground that all of us human beings share. And that's, look, we all want to feel certain ways. Like if you told me, Hugh, that I could buy a rock that would make me feel happy all the time, gosh, that would save a heck of a bar tab, probably a few therapist visits. It sounds like a cure-all, right? So it is no wonder why people perhaps get kind of lured in by this sense of alternative truth, but then perhaps get sucked into a world that they didn't even realize was going to happen. And
Let me tell you something about the placebo effect, which recently got published. The more money people pay for the placebo, the greater benefit they experience.
how about that?
Yeah. And so people who say are selling fake medicines, they basically find out, okay, what's your net worth? What is your capacity to pay? And they will charge you appropriately, because if you make a significant financial sacrifice, it's actually more likely to have a positive effect. But likewise, if it's overpriced, you're going to be depressed and say, I can't afford it. But I find it interesting. The more money that people pay for the placebo, the more likely they are to actually have a physical benefit from it.
Well, the hospitals will charge you for the real pill, even if they give you the fake one. That's what I've heard, at least. So there's that. But going back to kind of the idea of wanting what our creator wants for us, but wanting it how we want it, when we want it. I can't tell you, Hugh, how many times I've prayed for something thinking that's exactly in line with what my creator wants for me. And then years down the road, I look back and I think, thank you, God, for not giving me what I thought I wanted. The main trip up here for a lot of people might in fact be that they're not necessarily trusting the one that knows them better than they know themselves.
I mean, and a lot of my prayer life is like, God, I really want to know the answer to X. And the answer I hear back from him is, well, I want you to find the answer. And I'm not going to give you an easy answer. I want you to work hard to get the answer. And sometimes it takes me 10 years to get the answer I wanted. But in the process of that 10 years of working out to find the answer, things happen in my character that wouldn't have taken place if I got the answer right away. Or likewise, when there's a particular need I have, if God provided that need right away, wouldn't have the same benefit as I've been patient enough to see the different steps God wanted to work out first before that, what I thought was a need, came into my life. It's like, he has his way of engineering events, getting us to meet people, that are actually going to expose things in our life that we wouldn't have necessarily wanted to be exposed. But in the process, we wind up becoming a better person. Yeah, particularly in the Psalms of David. I mean, the thing about King David, he was very upfront with God with his emotions. God, why aren't you giving me the answer right now? I want it right now. And that's a lot of how we feel. I know David didn't try to hide his feelings because God knows how I feel anyway. Why bother hiding them? And
Right.
so he laid it all out there. But you also see in David's Psalms that God was able to speak to him and just say, hey, I am working this out, but not as fast as you want and not in the way that you want. I've got a better way. I have a better timing. So be patient and watch what I will do. And you see David expressing gratefulness, sometimes a decade or two later, for how, God did indeed work it all out.
It's so cool. And I love the providence in these stories, not only in the Psalms, and it just reflects our own hearts. They called a guy who had his best friend killed, a guy who basically slept with his best friend's wife, a guy who murdered people ruthlessly. They still call that guy a man after God's heart. Think about that. And if that, it speaks to the human condition, the human heart, our desires, our goals, our needs, and how all of those sometimes we feel like, man, it's never going to happen on this side of time. Ultimately, if we are covered by his blood, he has our best interest at heart, and he is going to work out his perfect plan. And the hardest part sometimes is not shopping for crystals online to kind of make that our own, to make that our reality through our intention and our manifestation and us, our level of effort. Instead, maybe he's asking us to stop and trust, spend time with him, talk to him, listen to him, and then
Yeah.
find ourselves in the story.
I mean, we've both been to college, and the thing I've noticed is it's signing up for the toughest physics course at the university. Yes, I knew I was going to suffer, but when I took that course and passed the exam, I realized this is the best decision I've made. That course was so much fun. I
Yeah.
learned so much. They actually assigned a really good professor to that course, and yeah, half the students dropped out. But because half the students dropped out, we actually wound up with a higher quality education. And so don't always look for the easy way. If sometimes the tough way is the way where you're really going to have an experience of blessing. And Jesus told us, in this life, you will have tribulation. And as a physicist, I often, put that in this life, you'll have thermodynamics and gravity and electromagnetism. And because of that, life isn't always going to be pleasant. But take heart, I've overcome the world. I've overcome the tribulation. I've overcome the thermodynamics. And yeah, you're decaying physically, but spiritually you're growing. I love that passage in 2 Corinthians 4. Our bodies are decaying. But it takes years before I notice, wow, Joey doesn't look quite as great as he did 10 years ago.
That's true.
It says in a single day, you can see growth in the spirit of the man or the woman. That person becomes more loving, more radiant, more fun to be around within just a 24-hour period. And so the physical decay is slow, the spiritual growth is rapid, which is why I think we who are followers of Jesus Christ, we can get excited about getting old. Because the older we get, the more beautiful we get, the more loving we get. At least that's the way it's supposed to be.
Well, I hope so. I'm getting more and more gray hair. I hope I'm getting wiser. I feel like I do every time we talk. You guys can connect with Reasons to Believe online at reasons.org, reasons.org. And of course, on Twitter at RTB_official. And don't forget to check out, guys, they have amazing merchandise for people of all ages, stuff for the kids, for mom and dad, for grandma, grandpa, and everybody in between. And it goes to a great cause. You guys are doing the Lord's work. For those of us who aren't smart enough to understand what Reasons to Believe understands, that's why we lean on you, man. Always a pleasure to have Dr. Hugh Ross. Thank you so much for making the time. I can't wait to have you back soon.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, this has been fun. Thanks you.